everybody. Welcome to, I guess, SF Python. My name is Kenneth Reitz. If you'd like to, you can follow me on Twitter at Kenneth Reitz. I work for a company called Heroku, and they're pretty awesome. I'm sure if you live in San Francisco, you know who they are. I don't really need to say much else. If you have any questions about that, you can come talk to me afterwards, I guess. I also am a member of the Python Software Foundation, and we are very excited about some new changes that we're making right now to we have made to our membership, the way the membership works. So before, if you wanted to become a member of the Python Software Foundation, basically what you'd had to do was you had to go and you'd have to get another member to like vouch for you, and then people would vote, and it would take like a year, and it was this really big ordeal. So now what we did is we took all the existing members, and now they're called fellows, and now anyone can go and become a member. So you just go to the website, you sign up, and now you are a member of the Python Software Foundation. You're on the same mailing list as everybody else, and it's this big like open community the way it should be. So I heavily encourage anyone who like really cares about the future of Python to go and join the mailing list, join the community, go join the foundation, and yeah, it's pretty awesome. We're very excited. So if you know who I am or what I do, it's probably from the open source projects that I've done over the years. If you go to my GitHub profile, there's about 18 serious projects on there and about 100 different experiments. Two of the most popular ones. One was called OSX GCC installer, which allows you to install GCC on your Mac without installing Xcode. And it got Apple's lawyers on the phone with me pretty quickly. That's pretty funny. But it ended up working out pretty well. They ended up they split out. They have command line tools for Xcode now because of this project, actually. So it worked out really well. I got to work with them a little bit on that. And then there's requests, which is the HTTP library for Python, which has been quite a pleasure to work on. I have a lot of other interests that I do other than code. I'm a street photographer, and I like to go take a lot of pictures when I'm traveling around, like in San Francisco. It's a beautiful city. I also make a lot of music, and I like playing around with synthesizers. And I love coming to speak and traveling the world and stuff. So yeah, that's enough about me, though. So who here writes Python? Let's see a show of hands. All right, it's lots and lots of people. Python is a language. It's a programming language, but in addition to just being a programming language, it is first and foremost a language. And we're going to talk a little bit today about what a language is. It's a little bit of a different talk. I haven't done one like this quite before, so it'll be interesting. So basically, the way this works is we're talking about the mental model of what it's like to be human. So in the history of what it's like to be human, we started off with the early human. And basically, this is before we had like verbal communication. We were just kind of alone by ourselves and our ideas. If we wanted to express any ideas to another person, we couldn't really do that because we hadn't developed language yet. So in our mental model of the way the world works and our communication modes, all we had was the self to communicate. And this is not a good situation to be in when you are a very social creature such as ourselves. Over time, though, we learned how to use spoken language, which it turns out is a very useful tool. I'm using it right now, and I assume everyone in this room uses it every day. And this allows you to communicate with the self as well as the other. And this allows you to express your ideas to others, which obviously is a little bit of a game changer. In addition to that, you can take that same principle and apply it to learn how to write, basically. You have written language. And that allows you to take, you can communicate with the self, you can communicate with the other, but then that also allows you to take those two vectors and also persist your ideas over time. And this is a very important thing when it comes to language. No other thing that we're the only thing that communicates that we know of that does this. And this is what really makes us human, is this kind of evolution of communication, in my opinion. And if you look and see at how this has happened, as far as we can tell, according to all the studies that have been going on, human hardware hasn't really changed through this whole process since we've just been like talking to each other or not talking to each other. It's really just the software that's been upgraded. Basically, you're born and you're born into your family, and you interact with them, and you learn from the software that they've kind of implanted in you because you're born into their software environment. And so we've been upgrading our software generation after generation, and that's what allows us to build better software for the next generation, and that allows us to communicate better. And we're on this trajectory, which is pretty amazing. So it started off with one-to-one communication. At first, language was basically used for a single person to communicate to another single person. This is kind of like what you do every day when you're walking around in an office or something, or to a very small group of people. And this is no longer the case. Like before, this was the only option you had if you're going to be talking, basically. This is not the case at all anymore, though. So this is, like, even for written communication, this was the case. So this is one of the earliest written languages that we know of that is considered to have a full alphabet. I think this is pretty remarkable, like the fact that someone received this and could parse this. I can't remember the exact story behind it, but it's like a king of Egypt or a prince of Egypt, and this is a parcel saying that someone of significance passed away, basically. And this is rather remarkable. Like, this is what humans do, basically, is we take our ideas and our concepts and the things that are important to us, and we imprint them into the environment around us to communicate with each other. And that's pretty important. So the next thing that we learned how to do is we went from one-to-one, and when we went to one-to-many, which is obviously the next progression in that timeline. We had something called the printing press that came along, which made it a lot easier to talk to multiple people. So before, you have this stone rock that you had for your letters. You couldn't really distribute that to multiple people. It was a one-to-one communication. Now you have a printing press where you can take, a sheet of paper or like a newspaper, and you can print thousands and thousands of them and go distribute them to your local town, or go put them, write a book and go give that out to the world. And this allows a single privileged entity to communicate to masses of people, and that's really a huge change in the way things work. This also took a lot of other forms other than from printing. You have newspapers, books, television, radio, and this led to a very different way of the human mind working. You have this idea of the public. You're not just having you and the people around you in your world. There's also this idea of everyone around you, beyond the people around you. There's this larger thing going on of the people in the world. And then there's many-to-many, which is the next evolution of this, obviously. Does anyone want to guess what many-to-many is? What? Machines. Close. The internet, thank you. Come on. The internet is many-to-many. If you have access to the internet, you have access to a universe of information and ideas. Anybody on the internet can publish anything to anyone, and any amount of people can read it, can consume it. Anything, it's completely open. It's amazing. And it's a level playing field. There's nothing stopping you from communicating with anybody on the internet, assuming you have access to it. And the implications of this are huge when it comes to this timeline of us trying to communicate with each other. This totally blows the hinges off the doors of what we've been trying to do. So before, we were trying to communicate with, we communicate with the self, the other. We could persist our ideas over time. Now we can persist our ideas over space. I can talk to people all over the world instantaneously, and it's incredible. And because of that, you have this huge amount of area that you can just go and explore in at any moment. And this is something that we've been trying to do all along, as we've been exploring all these little corners with all these different technologies we've been building. And the internet allows us to go out and explore all of them all the time. So you can go and explore self-expression, self-identity, history, culture, and you can go in an infinite depth in any direction. There's tools on the internet for creation and publishing of media, consumption and discovery, research information, and social media to go learn about culture. It's an amazing world out there. So for the first time in human history, we have the technology to go and be who we want to be and be who we truly are. And I think it's an amazing time to be alive. And I think that programming languages are what makes this possible. And I think that programming languages are an evolution of what language is. It's an extension of what language is, because it allows us to do this, and it's pretty amazing. And I think that Python in particular is a very special language. I think it's a little different than the other languages that are out there, because it's really special to me in my world, and I think it's incredible. Because we're all here because of Python, and it's really, really special. So there's a Zen of Python, which everyone I'm sure is familiar with. You have import this, which you type into in the terminal, and you will see these nice little beautiful statements about us trying to declare what makes us so different from the other programming languages. There's statements like beautiful is better than ugly, explicit is better than implicit, simple is better than complex, complex is better than complicated. All of these things make Python a very unique language, in my opinion. There's a lot of languages that obviously you can do any of these things in, but our community has a lot of ideals that are very special to me, and I want them to persist. But the truth is, right now, I'm very, very afraid for the future of Python. And I think that we should be very afraid. I'm absolutely terrified, to be honest. And I think that Python is like this extremely special thing. I know it's one of the most important things in my life. It's totally transformed it. And I think that if you look at all the things that have been possible, for the world before, programming languages in general are this beautiful thing that we can go and create anything with. But Python to me is unique, at least in my world. And I want to preserve it, which might be me clinging to something, but I'm really terrified for the future of Python, and I think you should be too. So Python is divided right now. It's divided by this big boundary right now. And that boundary is Python 2 and Python 3. So we're going to do a show of hands here. Who here works with Python 2 on a daily basis? All right, look around so you can see each other, so you get a good feel. Okay, now who here works with Python 3 on a daily basis? Okay. Now who here feels guilty about not using Python 3 on a regular basis? Come on, be honest. Okay. This is a really big problem, because we're told, time and time again that we need to be using Python 3, and obviously we should be, because if you go look, this obviously the future. Python 2.7 is was originally supposed to be deprecated like very soon, and it's being extended now, which is great. But and I'm not trying to push people in either direction right now. We'll get there. I'm really not. But this is like a huge problem that needs to be discussed a lot more, because it is totally tearing us in half right now. And I can see it, because I go to all these conferences and all these events, and I talk to people, and I see the huge rift happening, and it's not pretty, and I'm scared. So this boundary of Python 2 and Python 3 divides and separates us. Basically, Python 2 right now kind of represents the community, at least that I identify with, and that most people that I know identify with, people that work for companies. And Python 3 is like this scary other thing that's out there that we're kind of told that we need to be using, but it's this foreign, weird thing, and you're kind of afraid of it, right? It's kind of weird. But you're not alone if you're afraid of it. I guarantee you. It's kind of a bizarre little language. It doesn't even really look like Python when you look at it. It's not the Python I learned. If you take a byte string and you just call an index on it, and you get back an integer. What is that? That's not Python. That's just weird. And this is supposed to be more user friendly. I'm not trying to rag on it. I'm just showing you it's okay to be afraid of it, because it is a little odd, right? If you call a string on a byte string, it gives you back a Unicode representation of the byte string representation. This is the most. It's just a bug that they're never going to fix it. And it's a weird little language. There's a lot of things that people don't like about it. It's a different language. It's not the same language. You'll have people like Armin Ronacher, who you'll see, the creator of Flask, who you'll see go on rants for literal days about Unicode and the codecs in Python 3 and how they're irrevocably broken. And you know, these are legitimate concerns that these people have, but none of these concerns really resonate with you. You know, you don't. I don't have, like, when I hear Armin talking about, you know, all of his Unicode woes in Python 3, you know, like, I'm sitting in the room with him and he tells me about it, and it like really resonates deeply with me, because he's like, he ends up convincing me, but then the second I leave the room, I don't remember a thing that he said about it. Because he's, you know, he's on like that higher Unicode level or whatever it is. It's ridiculous. And when you read his blog post too, you're like, yeah, this is really good, and then you tell someone about it, and then you're like, well, what was it about it that he wrote? Like, I can't remember, you know, because it's not your direct experience, and that's the problem. Another one that happens is that the standard library breaks. It's not really, this is something that's vastly improved over time, but like in some of the, like in 3.2 and in 3.3, the standard library was shipped, and there's a lot of bugs in it that were like undetected for a long time. And this is a pretty serious problem in Python 3, and it's because basically no one's using Python 3. And this is the reason that these bugs happen. It's not because, you know, it's like this feedback loop. It's this vicious cycle of like, you know, there are no users because there are these bugs, and there's these bugs because there are no users. And it's not a good situation. But of course then you have the response of course there are users. Everyone's using Python 3, just not me. This is what a lot of people think, you know, because everyone has like this feeling that like, you know, oh, I'm behind the game because I haven't tried 3 yet. But the truth is, no one's used 3. And I have data to prove it. I'll show you. Because, you know, who here loves data? I mean, we're in San Francisco, I assume somewhere in a good crowd. All right, cool. So there's the cheese shop, which is the canonically accepted source of all Python package downloads and installation, which is a pretty good source for tracking if you are using Python, basically, I think. Basically, pip, which is the tool that everyone uses to install Python packages, practically. They added Python version tracking a while back. So every time you pip install something, in the HTTP headers, it'll basically say what version of Python you're running. And so we have a date range here from January of 2014, 2 weeks. And in that time, 81 million packages were downloaded with Python 2, and 3 million were downloaded with Python 3. So this is absolutely not a very good numbers game when it comes to Python 3 for adoption after it being out for so long. These numbers really shock a lot of people when you show them, because they're like, oh, you know, it's like, we're doing really good, but like the reality is Python 2 is not going away anytime soon, and Python 3 is, you know, that's a small number. The ratio isn't good. So one of the things that I think explains this right now is the people that are using 3 is I think a lot of new users are attracted to 3 right now. This is something that I've seen quite a bit. You know, if you're coming to Python, you decide you want to use Python, even though it's very unclear which version of Python you should be using, which does scare off a lot of people, and they pick 3. They're going to either pick 2 or pick 3. And you know, so they pick 3 often. And these people are like really passionate about Python. Often when you're learning a new language, they get really excited. And so like what happened to me is like I have this project called Python Guide, where I like talk about, you know, how to install Python, and I talk about all these different libraries, and I go off in all these different directions, and people really like it. And every 6 months or so, it gets on Hacker News for some reason, and people talk about it. And for the first time ever, like this last time I got on there, people were complaining about it because it recommends people use Python 2. And I was so confused. And it was on like r/Python as well. And I couldn't figure out who these people were who were commenting on this, on this post, because I go to all the events and I meet all the people, and I know everyone like in the real world who uses Python, and I don't know who these people are that are commenting. And I figured it out finally. It's newcomers to Python who are like really passionate about Python, because like when you're learning, you know, when you're new to an ecosystem, that's when I spent like all my time on Hacker News and all my time on Reddit, like looking at Python and like commenting on every single post. And these are the people right now. These are the people that are commenting on this stuff, and they are like the new Python community that's totally separate from my Python community, and they're completely isolated from us. And when I say us, I mean from me. I don't know, there might be a lot of them in here, I'm not sure. So like, this is the reality thing. It's like this further separation instead of this unification that we used to have. And it's, you know, there's just this rift. And we're being rifted in a lot of different directions. For example, there's the core developers and the Python community at large. Before, whenever the core developers were going to work on something, you know, they'd open a PEP, there would be a discussion. And you know, the whole Python community, it seemed like, would talk about it, and or they would know about it at least. And now, because the core developers are working on Python 3, and the Python community at large doesn't care about 3, they're kind of like working in a dark vacuum, and there's like this really, it's this larger and larger separation, and it's not a good situation, in my opinion, and it's only getting worse and worse and worse. And you know, and the core developers are a little frustrated because the Python community complains about the state of things, and they're like, well, you should get involved. But you know, it's just this bad, vicious cycle. So the current duality of the situation, basically, is that library maintainers have to double all of their efforts to support both Python 2 and Python 3. Core maintainers will continue to working in a vacuum, which will further separate and divide us. And new users will keep coming to Python 3, and Python 2 will slowly attrit away into nothing. And I think this is going to be the future of Python if we don't do anything, if we keep sitting and literally waiting as everyone has been doing. So, you are the problem, but you are also the solution to the problem. The two halves of this division need to become one. You need to go look within yourself before the Python you know and love, that we all know and love, is only a memory. Stop waiting for the right blog post or conference talk to influence your opinion, and go have an opinion for yourself. Go have a direct experience with Python 2, with Python 3, with anything related to it, and go share it with us. Go write a blog post, go tweet about it, so we can all try to figure out how the world looks like to you, so we can try to figure out what our actual community wants, so that the people on both sides of each boundary can start to work together to unify us back again. Because if we keep going the way we are, it's not gonna be good. So look within. That's it. Thank you very much.